head is that if most of the people, like my friend Rick Ferguson here, he would say that, do you agree that the loyalty business, quote unquote, was birthed in 1981? We usually equate it with when the American Advantage program was launched. So if the loyalty business, the thing that we're all here talking about today, has been around for 27 or 28 years, then the oldest end of the millennial generation that's 27, 28 years old was just born that year. And if you think about in 1981 what was going on, I looked up a couple of things. It was the year that IBM introduced the PC. It was also the year that MTV launched, so very first music video. And Arnold Schwarzenegger was still walking around in a Speedo on stage. So things have changed. And so the question I want to ask you three is, what level of recognition do you think that this millennial group has of the traditional loyalty program, frequent flyer, frequent shopper, frequent stay, awareness level, how they relate to the idea of accumulating currency, redeeming, that sort of thing? If you could weigh in on that.
So I think there is a gap, and I think the shift that's happening on the consumer side is not being reflected by marketers, especially loyalty marketers. And I've been thinking about why that happens, and my conclusion is, how many companies have 25-year-olds running loyalty programs? Not very many. So you may have 20-year-olds in your group, but they're not at a decision-making level in the organization. So we have to make an effort to understand what's going on, understand the shift, and try to adapt our marketing programs to reach them, because the way the shift is happening is so rapid and it's so crazy that if you don't, you're going to miss the boat, you're going to be behind the 8 ball in terms of getting your programs through.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, for our company, we reach out to nationwide retailers, merchant, restaurant groups every single day, and we talk about this specific demographic, and you have no idea how many different places we've been shuffled around to. I mean, we're in the loyalty, and we go to marketing, and we go to product, and we go to sales sometimes, and very rarely do they have people that focus on this demographic specifically. If they do, it's an intern or someone who just started. That's not what Apple did when they created their focus on education and the success that they're having. And if you look on Twitter, if you go onto Twitter and you search for student discount, pretty much every other tweet is about Apple student discount. And it's just amazing. That's a strategic decision to reach your future customers that has to be made at a very high level, sort of strategic. It's a very high level strategic decision, and it's pretty simple. I mean, do yourselves the favor and buy 20 people pizza and beer. It doesn't take that much, and just listen, just ask questions, and get to know them, because they are your future customers.
I couldn't agree more. I think also what's really important here is that just take away as much complexity as possible. It's not because they can't handle it, because they certainly can. It's just that they scan through 3 or 4 or 5 times more information than people did 5 years ago. There's no time to deal with complexity. We've had a lot of conversations with students where they've told us that I'm going to be 75 before I can cash in my miles on American and have a flight. I can fly to Florida. No offense, whoever's in Florida. But that is a very, very scary part of a lot of rewards programs, is that the 18 to 25 or whatever demo we're talking about here, they find it very complex, and they find it very frustrating that it's not just straightforward, this is what I'm used to. 1981 happens to be the year that I was born, so I know a little bit about how these guys think, and it's quite different from being born in 1961 or 71. And I guess if this panel if one thing should stick from this panel, it's that you have to treat them that way. They're not your average customer. They don't bite on a lot of the things that worked 10 years ago.
Couldn't ask for anything more, and I'm afraid to ask him if he knows what Arnold did before he became governor of California. But any questions out there? Does anyone have questions, or please?
Yeah, so I love what you guys are saying, but I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong, the demographic of Twitter is millennials predominantly, and we know that Facebook
Right, great question. I'll actually give you some statistics. I'm a co-founder of an industry association called the PMN, Participatory Marketing Network. So I encourage everyone, membership is free, thepmn.org. So we did a research, actually it was just announced yesterday, on, we have a Gen Y panel of about 250 students from different universities. And we asked them this question: how many of you are on Facebook? How many of you are on Twitter? 99% of our audience or panel was on Facebook. 20% of them were on Twitter. Now, so you're absolutely right on the money there. The point is, it's not about Twitter. I was at Twitter, like we talked about Twitter. One resounding theme that a lot of older people reflected on in San Francisco was that Twitter is the cheer of the hour. Do you remember MySpace? It used to be the hot thing 4 years ago. Facebook used to be hot up until a year ago. Now it's all about Twitter. 4 years from now, I guarantee you it's going to be another thing. Google has just come out with something called Google Wave, which looks like that could be the next big thing. So you can't really go and get enamored with it, with a specific product. The shift from push and permission to participation, the shift to social marketing, the shift to connecting with other people like them, the shift to valuing their opinion much more than hearing from the brand, that's a one-way street. So focusing on Twitter, you're absolutely right, may not be the right thing. Don't focus on the channel as much as you focus on putting a strategy together, putting a listening platform together, coming up with a campaign management tool that can speak to all the channels. And tomorrow it could be XYZ, but if you have a strategy and you just plug your messaging into that and you're able to listen to that side of the conversation, I think you'll be in good shape. Right.
Gen X is adopting some of these same ways of communicating. I think their expectations may start to look very similar. They want transparency. They want to filter out all the crap. They want a real value prop. Have you guys thought about that? Maybe influencing the long generation.
Right. So I'm a part of the Gen X. You know, I like to think. I think we're the confused generation. Because we had to learn a lot of things on the fly. We know what direct mail and telemarketing was. Gen Y, most of them didn't. When they dad picked up the call, they didn't answer it. So we're the generation that saw the internet rise and had to learn it in a hurry. So we're adapters. People who were born like 1980 and later, when they grew up and they were old enough, they had computers in school, they had internet access, they take it for granted. So you're right in that. I think it's going to come together because Gen X is learning the behavior that Gen Y is taking for granted. So you're absolutely right. They're going to merge, but you can just clump them together because Gen X is pretty savvy as well. More people on Facebook are now, you know, Facebook demographic is moving up in age, and it used to be like college students, and now it's a lot more older people.
Just follow up on that quickly. I think we all remember the bell curve from marketing class. And it's just that things are moving, or part of it is that things are moving a lot faster. So the time between the early adopters and the late adopters is just so much shorter now than it was 5 years ago. So when you see college students, obviously 20% of college students having a Twitter account is lower than a lot of people might think right off the bat. But college students have been using Facebook for quite a while, if you think about it, in this scenario. And now we're seeing the late adopters, even though it's taken shorter of a time, and they're still late adopters.